Well, hello, true gardeners. Welcome back. So today's going to be kind of a different type of video. We don't have a garden tour for you today, but today is going to be kind of just a conversation in hopes that this is something you can take away, and it's just going to really help you take the guesswork out of having to get started. If y'all are like me, you are researching, looking for ideas and different ways to create the perfect landscaping, like where to start. But if you're anything like me, sometimes you don't know the right questions to ask, or that you don't know what you don't know. And so I thought in today's video, we would bring up some most important questions that we've gotten from clients that have been like aha moments for them. Like, oh, I wish I would have known that, a year ago when I got started, or I wish I would have done that first. And so I'm hoping that this becomes a valuable little tool that you can just kind of bookmark and reference back, and it comes across as just a couple professionals sharing with you guys what we've learned, over all of the years of doing this in business. And I'm hoping you take out the guesswork.
So the process typically starts with finding out what you like. If you're watching this YouTube channel, hopefully you like a lot of the landscapes that are there. If not, I'm sorry. Okay. But looking on YouTube, looking on Google, looking on Pinterest, and trying to figure out and narrow down what you like. And it's not a bad thing to like a tropical landscape and then like also a contemporary landscape.
Oh, I get that more than I don't. It feels like I get a nice mix of that. I'm sure you do too.
Totally. And they always feel like they're doing something wrong. Hey, like I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Becomes a mediation. We can work with this.
This is all right. And they're like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, you have a little crazy in the back and then you have it more toned down in the front. It's like a mullet, I always say. Some people laugh, some people don't.
I'll laugh for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But yeah, so you want to put in some keywords into Google if you're searching, whether it's House, Google, or Pinterest, whatever it is. So there is a jungle-inspired landscaping. I do tend to put, I tell my clients, put in Florida if that's what you're looking for. Put in jungle clean line landscapes in Florida. It'll pop up a bunch of different pictures, screenshot, keep what you like. And then if there's some contemporary clean line landscape, that's another one that's very specific. So I get a lot of clients who do like that. And then believe it or not, a clean line tropical landscape is another one. So those are some things that you can really do.
So tropical clean lines, it means like you're going to have, your tropical plants, of course, but more or less, they're not going to be meshing in with one another. They're kind of just going to stay side by side. Now, when you have that, it takes a little bit more maintenance because you're going to have to trim those to be side by side. So you have a grouping of crotons, and then you'll have a grouping of maybe boxwoods or gold mound right next to it. And they're going to be side by side, and you can exactly see the definitive line between the two.
But what brings in the tropical is that you have those rows, like you have those drifts of plants, but then you've got something like a pop coming out of it. So whether that's a coconut palm, or if it's something like a pygmy date palm, something that's going to soften all of that hedgy look, or something even like a false agave that comes out of the middle of it. So your clean lines are to the front, and then you've got something like something popping out of a birthday cake ever so often, kind of giving you different varies of heights and just kind of giving you that soft tropical look.
And then you're going to have your tropical jungle look, which is going to be a lot of meshing. So it's going to
My favorite.
It's going to look like plants are, competing. I want that spot. And they're like, no, I want that spot. And they're just, it looks like they're combining with one another. Now, the positive with that is that it's a little bit less maintenance.
It's a lot less maintenance,
Yeah.
which is probably the reason why I have that through my whole backyard. Now, that being said, you guys, there is still definitely rhyme with the reason that goes on with all that. Just because they're meshing together doesn't mean that there's just a bunch of things thrown together. You definitely want to keep an eye on your layers. So you want to make sure that your lower material is always going to remain just that low material. So something like an aglaonema at the bottom is never going to compete with the next layer. So if you have a grouping of aglaonemas, for instance, as your base there, then you're going to have something that's going to be around 5 to 6 foot tall behind it. So aglaonemas and Brazilian red cloaks are never going to compete with each other. So you can pile those guys in nice and tight, but you can't put Brazilian red cloaks in and put something like a croton behind it, because it's going to get lost. So you always need to make sure that you pay attention to your layering and the matured heights of things. But that being said, you can always do a heavy tropical landscape and have nice defined levels, but without it being so transparent with just a drift, and then an accent, which is more clean line contemporary. Gosh, I hope that came out okay. I hope you guys understood that.
Those are really the three that I like to hit on the most. The tropical clean line, the tropical jungle, which is that meshing, and then that traditional contemporary look right then and there.
Yeah.
That's, almost like
And we did some Asian inspired that were really cool too.
some Asian inspired ours as well. Yeah. And the best part about it is like it's your garden. You can completely customize the space to your liking. There's no like I remember being in like one community and the homeowner was like, "Can we do that here?" And I was like, "You can do whatever you want." Like yeah, that's the best part. So like if you have a little nook in the corner and you just went to was it Hong Kong or something for your anniversary and you want to remember that special moment, make that little nook a Hong Kong inspired part of your
Totally.
garden.
That's exactly right. I had a client who had their honeymoon in Hawaii, and they're like, there was just some really key plumeria that were kind of encasing the seating section. And so they were like, I want that look here. And I'm like, totally, we can make that happen. With the exception of Hawaii, they don't go bald during the couple months of the year like they do here. So if they were okay with that, we did that. However, they were not. So what we ended up doing was creating a nice grouping of gardenias to the back that actually kind of curved out. I got them nice sized so they came up over the seating section and overhung that. And then to the back side of that, I did some Brazilian red cloaks. So we had a nice layer of 5-foot gardenias with 10-foot Brazilian red cloaks to the back that gave them the color of the plumeria and the big leaf, but also gave them that kind of a bonsai kind of canopy over top of the back of the seating section. So that's kind of what I mean. If you're looking for whether you're going to go to Hong Kong or you like another type of landscaping that quite doesn't suit your location, it's amazing how you can find plants to substitute that look, to still give you that inspired feel, but use material that's within your zone.
And that's what I realized, like a lot of people want to stop, like dead in their tracks when like, especially in Florida, because they'll be like, I really like this look. And then I realized that there's zones and people don't really realize that there's zones.
Yes. You're harnessed in some,
So
yes, for sure.
exactly. And then they kind of like go in that stopping ground where it completely delays their whole process because they're scared of putting something in their yard that won't survive. That's a really important thing, is to make sure that you're good with the zones, but you can totally mimic something and just use the same format like you were saying, and then just research what can survive in your zone. So I guess one of the first things is finding out what zone you're in, and then finding out what plants can go in there too. So that would be
that mimic your style that you've already found out. So if you've got that style, then now you know what plants that will give you a look-alike feel for that particular landscape that you found that may have been in Hawaii. So it's really, really important. And the next thing to do, you guys, especially if it's a backyard, find out how you're going to use the space. If you're going to use the space and you want kind of a nook seating section like Bryce was talking about, and maybe you want a little collection of where you can put a hammock or a little reading nook, or maybe you entertain a ton and you want kind of a showpiece area and kind of a big layered landscape with a patio porch, walk through how you're going to use that space. Really dream it out. And that's what I do when I meet with my clients. We'll kind of walk through the garden and I'll be like, okay, so what is your day-to-day and what is your hope for the future with the new garden? And that'll really kind of help you understand, because there's been many times where we've come to an existing garden and they had to pull several areas out, and time is money and plants, and you guys know how that process goes. It gets expensive. So do it right the first time. Take your time and walk through the space mentally, maybe even draw it out if you like, but that way you really have a good determination of what you're going to want to see as it unfolds.
and be practical with it most of all. Like I remember going to a house where their backyard, it was a rectangle, but their house to their lanai to walk into the backyard was on the corner of their house. So their house looked out to the left side of their backyard. So the whole right side was completely not able to be seen. So you want to be able to have the center piece to be right where that lanai is. So when you open the door and you're inside the house, you're able to go and see that exact part and then have everything else complement it. You know what I mean with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Find your focal point is what I think you're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the most important part of the garden is, that's where the money shot is.
Part where you're going to see it the most.
Yes. That's a spot that you're going to go grab that glass of wine and you're going to sit there and hang out and you're going to have conversations. That's the area that you're going to congregate around.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kitchen of the garden. So, it's a spot that you want to make sure that you create that focal point there and put all of, you've got a budget that you've set for the space. That's where I would say 60% of your budget is going to go, is to that location. And then you can piece it out through the rest of the yard everywhere else.
That's probably the biggest thing that one of the first questions I ask when I meet with somebody is like, okay, are you going to be doing it yourself, or are you going to be, bidding it out to somebody or finding a contractor? And a lot of the times they have no clue. They haven't even thought that far ahead. And one of the biggest things that I recommend is doing the fun things, and then having somebody do the hard things. oddly enough, you know.
That's probably the way I would do it too.
So, for instance, like the big trees and stuff like that, you know, you're gonna want them to look good right away. The only thing is sometimes they're a little bit finicky. If you plant it a little bit too high or a little bit too low, that big old tree just may not make it. So it's best to have a professional do that part.
Yeah, so you don't want to be too high where the tree's going to fall over in the first rainstorm because it's kind of like this and there's not enough root system in the ground. And you don't want it to be too low or even level. You don't want it to be level either because, you know, the soil compacts after a dig in. So that tree will slowly sink. And that is probably worse than anything because it'll drown the tree over time. So, and it's a long, slow, drawn out death. But, you know, that's the good part about knowing some professionals. So if you've got 3 or 4 trees in your design, maybe have somebody come and put the big stuff. And then that leaves you plenty of room to work with, you know, the groundwork, the accents, the things along those lines. But to each his own on your landscaping with that.
Yeah, do all the fun things, the cosmetic things, make it all look pretty. Put a few Blue My Minds here around the big old tree that you had installed. That's probably the best go-to.
Yeah.
So the next tip would be finding an installer. I've had some people have issues with finding installers, whether it's getting phone calls back. The most important thing I would say is probably clear communication. You want somebody that's going to talk about the process with you and is going to help you understand what the process entails, because right now you're in a state like where you don't know what you don't know what to ask, you don't know what to expect, and you're kind of at a lot of people's mercy. So really engulf yourself on the process and ask 3 to 5 landscapers kind of how the process goes down, how they do the process, how their process goes.
Yeah, and you know, I would say I'm going to share with you guys like what I call my perfect client, because not that all of my clients, most of them become my friends, so a lot of them are pretty perfect. But I know when somebody is serious, someone is really excited about this process, they have done the research. So they've got me some pictures. You know, they got me 5 great pictures of what they like. They got me a couple pictures of what they don't want, which is ideal, just as important. And then they've done some research on things that they do plant-wise. You know, I like this, and this. I like this, and this. And so sometimes I'll have a printout or a written down, you know, kind of menu of things that's okay for me to work into their design. And I know that's for some people that might feel like it's a lot of work, but I'm telling you, you give that to a contractor, and whether they're a designer or not, they're going to feel like they can take this seriously, because more than not, the thing that I hear, like you said, is nobody called me back, you know, and it's not like it's your fault in any kind of way, but I'm telling you, if you have a contractor who's on point and you've given them this information, they feel like you are a client they're going to move forward with, that this is going to be something, this is not just an idea, or, you know, you had some free time on the weekend, so you thought you'd call a contractor. Yeah. This is somebody who's going to take you seriously. So having your information at hand makes you seem like a very serious person to work with, and it really is super helpful for us too.
How would you go about finding them? I always say, like, Google is very strong. Look for strong Google
Reviews. Yeah.
There's also, like, you know, driving around your neighborhood and, you know, maybe getting out of your comfort zone and like finding a house that you like and just knocking on it and saying, hey, who's your landscaper? For one, it's a compliment to them, but 2, I'm sure they would be happy to share.
We've gotten a lot of people call us from just people knocking on the door, and I give out cards now. That happens so much. I give out cards now to the homeowners. I say, if anybody comes, would you mind just giving them our card? That'd be super helpful. And because people do that, so don't feel like you're the oddball out that you do that. People do knock on doors of homes that they just love this style and ask about who their landscaper is.
Even next is like probably Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace, you can find probably anybody. I found mechanics. I haven't searched for landscapers, but I'm most definitely sure you could probably find one in your area.
Just reviews are big, because how people respond back to you, how they treat you, that's going to be huge in the landscape world, because there is some trust involved in that. So find somebody who has a good succession of reviews, and then that way you know they're your girl or guy.
Also, good photo galleries is probably really important too.
That is similar to your style.
Yeah, I always like using, some people like the analogy, but tattoos, for instance, like if you wanted a very clean line tattoo, you would go to somebody that specializes in that rather than somebody that specializes in artful, colorful tattoos.
Totally.
Yeah, you want to be same with the chef too. You want to go to somebody that specializes in steakhouses.
Surf and turf.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go, you know.
Yes, and what Bryce had mentioned about looking at photos are really helpful on their gallery, because it also lets you know what nurseries they pull from pretty often, because all of us landscapers, just like any other trade, we have our favorites, don't we?
Totally. Yeah.
So if I'm tagging at a specific nursery and I'm there pretty often, say it's on the other coast, or say it's, over here in Vero Beach, Florida on the Treasure Coast, wherever I am like like looking to see what they've got now and what they've got coming up. You know, if they've got a beautiful selection of cabata palms, for instance, I know that, gosh, in the next 6 months, I'm going to be able to use cabata palms like crazy because I've got a nice source for those. So my next few landscapes might include that if that's within my client's style. So you'll see whatever pictures that you see, notice that that's what they're really comfortable planting. That's the look that they're really comfortable creating. So that might be, if it's in line with your style, that might be a really good way to pair the two, wouldn't you say?
I would say so too. And they're going to pick from their favorites for the most part. So they're going to pick that tried and true material that they know is, if they put it in, it's going to mesh well together and it's not going to die. So that's the most important thing. Is like you're getting their expertise along with their style.
Yes, yes. And then those of you guys who are DIYing it, and that's what you're probably doing here too. You're on YouTube, you're seeing what looks good. You're following some professional landscape companies online, and you're saying, okay, I never see anybody use this. I never see anybody use that. So even though I like it, probably not a safe bet, because there are plants here in Florida, you guys, that are sold at every single nursery that you never see out in gardens.
There's a reason why.
There's a reason why, yes, because it never lasts. It's what we call a turnaround plant. You know, it's a plant that I would never put in the garden.
That's my favorite thing to say too. Like, well, I'll be showing somebody like variegated arboricola. They're like, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, why? And they're like, I see it everywhere. I'm like, there's a reason.
There is a reason. And sometimes you can incorporate it nicely into a design, and sometimes it's a no-go. So there's definitely a lot of room for discovery on those things. But if there's a plant that you've seen that you're like, why doesn't everybody use this? Then there's usually probably a reason why that is the case. So you kind of just pay attention to that, DIYers yourself.
And you know, when you're going around and you're searching for these plants that can do well in your neighborhoods, and you say you don't know what the name is, just take a picture and just give descriptions in Google. There's AI in Google now, so
ChatGPT pretty much you can post a picture, right?
There's also so many other apps too that you can download.
It's old school. I only know the one.
Yeah, you could post it. You could just send the picture to ChatGPT, or you can just give descriptions in Google. What's this orange bloom that stays around 5 foot tall or 4 foot tall and has green leaves or something like that, and it'll pull up a whole list for in your zone, and you could just use it from there.
Yeah.
It was Taiwanese ixoras is what I was thinking, by the way.
Yeah, and just like Bryce said, I mean, drive through neighborhoods in your area, because that's really going to help dictate what does good in the soil conditions around you. Because most of the time, if your neighbor has something that's really successful, it's looking really, really good, then more than likely that really likes the acidity level in your soil. Now, you can look all that stuff up if you like, but a lot of times that can be resolved with just driving through nearby surroundings and seeing what's doing well and making sure to stay away from what's not doing well.
And I'll bring up a question that somebody asked me not too long ago was, is it okay to purchase things like at Lowe's or at Home Depot, or these plants at Home Depot? Are they good quality plants?
You know, that's a tough one, because most of them are from nurseries that do spray and do regular treatments. I think it's Costa Nursery does Home Depot, but it's one of those things that Home Depot doesn't do much as far as taking care of plants. And there's such a quick rotation that a lot of times by the time the plant is there, it's sold before anything really needs to be done to it, any treatment for pests or anything along those lines. So as long as it's a healthy looking plant, then absolutely you can. It's probably going to be young in the pot, and it's probably going to be healthy because it just came from a nursery. So you're going to be okay. Definitely pay attention to your zone though. Do not let Home Depot or Lowe's dictate what plants actually work in your town, because they ship all over. Yes, they ship all over the place, and there are plants that I see in Orlando's Home Depot that do not belong in the ground in Orlando.
I saw heliconias over in Orlando Home Depot, and I'm like, what are you doing here? It's because they can take them inside for the most part, so it's a little bit deceiving. I would say if you see a nursery and they have all their plants outside, good to go. So the next part of your process is when you go to search for your plants and trees, you're going to come across this. You're going to figure out that nurseries either sell to wholesale or they'll sell to retail. So you'll need to figure out exactly what you should be doing in that situation. You may need to have a contractor that you'll have to go through in order to get the bigger trees that you want, or you'll just have to go and travel a little bit to go to a nursery that sells to retail.
So when you're calling around for your local nurseries, you could give them a call in advance and ask them, do you sell retail? Because a lot of them don't. So you would say, do you sell retail? And if they do, And then if they say, no, we only sell wholesale, and you'd say, what's required with that? I have a contractor who's doing a part of mine. Could I have him pick those up, or could I, buy them knowing that he's going to install them? Just ask them a couple questions, because it depends on the nursery, but sometimes they're real lenient with that, and sometimes they're not. So
I've even seen where if you have a plan or a plant legend with all the materials, they're more likely to take it too.
yeah. And then I know I've mentioned this before, but there's plantant.com. That's a great way to find nurseries. Now, I did get some emails where I responded back where they had trouble being able to see the nurseries because it says you have to be a contractor. And my bad, because I didn't realize that, because I am a contractor. But what you'll want to put in there is go ahead and use my company name. Put in construction landscape. There's going to be 5,000 construction landscapes out there, but who cares? And as long as you put in a company name and your own email, that way it gets sent to you. You'll be happy to look up all that information. So if it comes to the point and asks for your company name, just stick a company name. It doesn't have to be construction. It just has to be something landscape. And then you'll be able to see. Now, it's going to be a mix of retail and wholesale nurseries, so you might have to call them individually. But what's great about that particular website, and I have no affiliation with this, you guys, it's just, I think it's a helpful tool, is you can put in, let's say you're looking for, yellow alamanda, for instance, and you don't know who has it. You can put in the plant name up there, and it'll give you all the nurseries that within whatever miles that you put in on the list, within 50 miles of who has that plant, who has that tree that you're looking for. And that way you can call them individually and say, hey, do you have this? And then you can kind of put together a list in doing it that way. That way you can go pick up everything all at once within a couple different nurseries that are relatively close to one another. But if you're doing it yourself, I know sometimes the biggest, toughest, hardest part of that whole thing is getting enough material that you like within a couple different nurseries without going all over the state. So so try services like that. I wish there was other services that were available, but calling around to different nurseries is super helpful. And don't be afraid to ask the nursery. I was telling this to a customer the other day, to ask the nursery. A lot of times they'll locate the material for you.
Oh yeah, totally.
We have buyers that always are calling to see. I buy my own material because I like to tag it. I like to put hands on my own material for my clients because I know what I'm looking for. Bit of a micromanager, right? But there are buyers out there from many nurseries, and what they'll do is they'll call and give the buyer a list of material they want brought into their nursery. So a lot of times, if you say, look, I'm looking for this, and this, I'd like to buy it from you. Can you get this in for me? And I'll pick it up at your nursery. So further down the line, now that you got your ideas all situated and things kind of worked out in your head, now you're looking at your space and you're going to try to determine what your bed size is going to be. And how big do you want this landscape to be? How is it going to fit? So obviously scale is important. It's going to be something that you want to make sure that works for the space. If you've got a long, deep front yard from your house to the road, then you can make it really widen out. Loop that bed out as nice as you like. Kind of give yourself a little bit of a clean buffer between where the planting starts and the foundation of your house, giving you plenty of room to walk behind there if you need to. I usually like to start 3 foot off the house and then work forward from there. That way it makes easy maintenance. You can trim from the front of the bed and from the back side.
I've also seen people use rock paths.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I know. It's so nice and clean if you just have a nice little edged rock path back there. That way if you got to put up hurricane shutters or paint.
Looks like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. It's a nice professional little touch there. So if you have the room for that, totally do it. If you have more of a narrow or flat or what I call pug-shaped front yard, and it kind of comes in more, then you want to really, really definitely respect that. Really kind of make sure that your loops are much smaller, much more formal. Now, that does not mean you can't use big trees. You can absolutely use big vertical trees, but you don't want that bed pushed out so far. So definitely keep in line with the loops, because if you guys watch my channel, you know I like curves. So keep that curves, and just imagine if this is the foundation line of the house here, you kind of want to start out with a nice pop out curve, and it can start out something and loop out, come out to 7 or 8 feet out here, and then start to angle in and then loop out to a wider loop on the outside in the corner of the house. So that's all going to be based on your house dimensions. But I definitely love the idea of almost like an S-like pattern where it really comes in and kind of gives you a nice serpentine type of look there. That's it.
It's also good not to, make it like a heartbeat where everything is up, down, up, down, up, down. You want to make it very gradual.
That is a good point. So what you want to make sure that when you're mowing, you can ride a mower or walk a mower directly across those lines. So you're not doing like these look kind of like little turns.
Yeah, wrists are going crazy.
Yeah, this is not like this. So you want to make it as seamless and as soft as possible. And that's going to give you that kind of real clean professional look. So making but if it gets too wavy, Yeah, you're right. No heartbeats there.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback off what you said earlier about distances off the house. Whenever I'm doing the CAD plans, I always try to make it around 7 to 8 feet off the house. Usually it's on the corners where you put them, the anchor corners. So off the corner of the eave, you want to go about 8 feet out. That's where you would plant the first tree to accommodate for the fronds.
Yes, yeah. And then if you don't have that kind of room, that might be where you have to hire a professional landscape company to come in and install that big bad boy, because you want to make sure it has some clearance to be above the house line. And that's my favorite way to landscape. If that's doable, it's in your wheelhouse, or if it's just in your budget to have somebody come in and put just your trees in, it's ideal to have a nice kind of clean line trunk. Then your roof line is here, and then it comes out over top of it like an umbrella. So you can see right through from the road to the house, and it kind of gives you almost that framework pretty instantly. But those of you who do not fear. Florida trees grow like crazy. So, you know, it happens over time very quickly.
Now for the next step, when starting that bed or trying to visualize that bed, I like to have 3 different ways to go about it. You can start with a hose, which you can use to outline the bed. You can use a spray paint gun to help outline that bed.
Just my favorite.
Yeah, a little less permanent. I like these options. And then the last one is to have just stakes in the ground so you can visualize where the key pieces are going to be.
Yeah. And for those of you guys, you probably know this, but there is landscape paint that you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's just a marking paint that goes off after a few rains, so, or, you know, after a few trims of the grass. But that's what I like to do. When I'm looking at a space, even sometimes when I'm there just to design it, I'm trying to get a feel for the space from the road. So I'm looking at a front yard, I'll put in 4-foot reflector stakes that kind of represent the trees just to see the location that I kind of want. And then I look at that space, and then I will outline with my paint around those areas and kind of see how those trees fit into that bed to make sure that I have a really good visual. That has saved me so much. I wish I had done that my first couple years in business, but it took me a few years of moving a tree a foot here, a foot there.
Yeah.
So before I realized that you can do that as almost like a proof, you know, okay, that's, so now sometimes on harder projects, ones that I really want to, I'm struggling with, I'll go out and get those stakes and do that before I even start the design.
And you know, that's all what it's all about. You learn the hard way and then helping other people.
That's
so
right.
There you
go. Yeah.
One thing I want to say too is like when you're especially doing the smaller plants, just the averages typically, and you can help me out with this. So for 1 gallon, you're going to be 1 gallon plants like Loriavi, Blue My Mind, stuff like that. You're going to be about generally 1 foot on center. So from the center of this plant, going 1 foot away in the center of the other plants, that's where that would be planted. So you can literally put your foot down, spray paint a dot, put your foot down again, spray paint another dot, and that would help you visualize that. Now,
if you have a 12-inch, you have a one.
That's important too. Or you just do a ruler.
Well, yeah, or use your tape measure.
Yeah. Don't get your shoes all orange either. Please, I don't condone that.
I have orange dots on all of my shoes.
Next would be your 3 gallons. What would you say? Around 2 to 3 feet for a 3 gallon?
Yeah, so on average, it's about 2 foot on center. So like Bryce said, the center of each plant to the center of the next plant. And that goes for the same way as even if you're staggering them.
Yes.
A lot of people are like, what happens if I've got to zigzag them? What happens there? It's the same way. You're just zigzagging the pattern. So it is
like
1 foot. Yes, it's 1 foot here, 1 foot there, but it's so zigzag. No matter which way you're going, it is 1 foot on center.
Yeah, correct. And then for that 7 gallon material, those can range, you know, depending on the height structure. Because once you get into that 7 gallon, you're going to get a lot more verticals. So if it's something like a quarter line, you want to still be like around that 3 foot. But if it's something, you know, like a false agave where it's going to spread out a little bit, you want to be that 3 to 4 foot away.
Yeah.
And this generally changes from landscaper to landscaper, but I get a lot of questions about, should we use weed fabric on everything or just the rocks or just the plants? I would generally say around just the rocks is the most important thing. For plants, you want to let them breathe a little bit. We just don't really recommend weed fabric underneath the plants.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. So you guys, if you watch the videos, you know that I say this all the time. Pathways, rockways, areas that you don't have plants on, flagstone areas, whatever that is, ideal to have a nice barrier there because it's going to hold your stone in place. Now, I prefer not to have it in landscape beds, but if you're doing rock beds, then you absolutely still need it. So you just want to make sure you cut out a wide enough section. I have people who will just cut out a little slit, put the plant in the ground, and then have that weed fabric around it. That is going to really suffocate your plants. You're going to notice that they're going to grow super, super slow. So go ahead and leave a big ring around where the plant is. The goal for the fabric itself is to keep the rock in place, to keep a foundation underneath of that so you don't lose rock over time. It's really not necessarily as much to help the weeds, because as you guys know, in Florida, weeds will grow on top of the weed fabric just the same. So I'm a big fan of just not using it if you don't have to.
Yeah, and wherever that rock and that mulch is going to be hitting, even from rock to grass, typically want to have some type of edging. The type of edging is not that important. If you want to go on the cheaper side, there's that rubber black edging. A little bit more expensive is that aluminum alloy edging. That's always nice. You see those all the time. And our personal favorite, I would say, is probably the Buta edging, which will be linked in the description.
Yes, it will.
But just go with an edging material. You can even go like a rock border. Those are nice as well. Whatever suits your groove.
Mix it up like I did. Yeah, I have a mix of it. I have some rustic rock material. I've got some clean lines of the Buta edging, and even cleaner lines with the aluminum alloy edging.
Yeah.
I just like the look of it. But what I don't like is seeing things overlapping into one another, unless they're plants.
Sure. Yeah,
But I like my edges to have a nice crisp border and all the crazy behind it. So
yeah, and I thought you brought up a great point about edging. A few videos back, we were talking about should you use edging for your mulch? And I was like, I used to be on the side of like, you don't really need to. But then you brought up the point of like, well, that bed is going to keep increasing and increasing and increasing in width or length. So putting an edging is going to help when the lawnmower hits it to not expand it more than what it needs
it'll
to
stay
be.
the same size it was meant to stay for the beginning. Yes, yeah. So in recap for today, you guys, I hope some of these tips help you all, but it's pretty much find your style from the beginning, really kind of have a really clear vision of what that is, and dial that in as crisp as you can, because that's not only going to help you kind of visualize your space as you're dreaming this up, but it's also going to help if you transfer this over into a contractor, help them really understand you and what you're looking for. This way you're not influenced by your designer or your contractor. You're really kind of creating the space that you want. So take your time in doing that, because that's part of the fun part of this whole thing.
Yeah, and the next thing you want to do is figure out how much you want to tackle. Is this going to be a DIY, or are you going to be bidding it out the entire project? Maybe you tried a little bit of it and you're like, well, let me just get somebody out here to do it all. That's fine too, you know? So it's
Totally
figuring that out.
Yeah.
Next thing I would say is just the spacing. Make sure that you're not suffocating your plants, but they're not too far away where you can run through them, you know? So that's kind of important. So know your spacing, know your gallon sizes, outline the area so you know exactly where these plants are going to go. And you can also just do it on a piece of paper. Write down the length and width and just of your house or the corner of your house, and then how many plants are going to be in that area, generally like 2 or 3 feet apart from one another. And that should give you a pretty good understanding of when you go to the nursery, how much supplies you need to get.
Yeah. And then ask your nursery people. And many times they are super helpful, you guys. So feel free to ask them, and then ask if they're willing to order that in for you, because a lot of times you'll find out that the answer is yes. They're happy to order it in.
Next thing was focal points. Make sure wherever you're at the most and wherever you're looking the most, that is your focal points. Also, I want to say windows. Windows are kind of important. You have to figure out where you're looking at from inside. If you have a dining room window and you want to be able to see into the streets, you don't want to have something blocking that window.
Totally.
So maybe like a false agave as an accent, where it only gets to that 4 to 6 feet tall and it's not taking up all that area like a pygmy date palm would be. You may not want to go across. Or if you want that privacy, a pygmy date palm would be perfect.
Right. So right. I'm so glad you touched on that, because I get that all the time. Sometimes it's really about the place, not exactly the plant or the tree. So I'll have some clients who are like, well, I love this plant, love that plant, love this plant, but this one's not exactly on my list that where I love it. It's absolutely not a must-have. And kind of be a little open, because sometimes plants or trees have a purpose, whether it's buffering or it's staying low enough and won't grow too tall so you can see behind it. Whatever that is, kind of give yourself a little bit of leniency to use some of those what I call supporting characters in the garden. because they really help the star of the show shine. And sometimes you need to incorporate those to make it happen. Even if it's not on your love list of plant choices, it's definitely something to kind of keep in mind and consider, just because it's a good, useful purpose for that particular plant. But you guys, the next thing is just kind of get started. This is a process where you're going to find some little quirks and some little questions along the line, but getting started with at least these few things are really going to help you kind of really zero in on getting the exact garden of your dreams.
You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be mistakes that are going to be made. Just keep moving, keep doing your research. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments, especially in videos like this, because we love answering questions and making videos like this. Yeah, feel free to shoot
give us a
up.
little bit of time, you guys, because we do have full-time jobs, both of us. And so this YouTube thing has been so fantastic and such a great thing to share with you guys and for us to share on this project. But it does sometimes take some time to get back to you guys in the comments. And it's just not because it's not important. It's because it's just life.
Yeah, life just does life things for sure.
Yeah. But we hope you guys get started. I would love to see some progress pictures of projects that you've started. Sometimes I get those on Instagram, and I think that is the coolest thing ever. Please be sure to share those with us, because those are things that we really get some excitement over. And it's just great that we're able to be of help to you guys in your gardens and see that transformation. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you guys enjoyed today's video, then you will enjoy a video that I'll pop up on the screen. I'll probably put my backyard garden tour. It was one that I did kind of selfie style, and I thought it was pretty cool. So if you guys enjoy backyard tours and gardens, then check that one out. So thanks so much. We will see you next week. Take care.